Hello, and welcome to 25th Hour.
What are you doing for the planet?
Hi, my name is Justin, and for the planet, I recycle.
For the planet, we carry our reusable mugs to use on cold winter days.
For the planet, I like to walk as much as I can.
For the planet, I work for Forest Recovery Canada and Forests Ontario, planting trees across Canada.
Hey Ottawa, I'm Jeff Tram.
And I'm Mark McGovern. This week, we're looking at everyday people in our community who are working towards a greener Ottawa and a greener planet. Here's a quick look at some of them.
Tiny critters, making a big difference.
Essentially what you're going to build is this box of life.
Plastic straws, helping or hindering?
It seems to me like a bit comical to have such a strong fight against plastic straws.
And the fight against fast fashion.
Something's going to have to be the thing that you sacrifice, and that's usually environmental things.
Worms, maggots, insects. What do you think of them, Mark?
Well, I wouldn't want them as my roommates, Jeff.
I wouldn't want them either. But sometimes these little creatures can help in big ways. Akil Meziwala founded the Box of Life, using worms to turn food scraps into soil.
At a point we had 15 pounds of worms inside the house. They're the easiest pets you'll ever have. I've killed fish, I've killed plants, nothing bigger, but earthworms have survived everything. My name's Akil, and I founded a company called the Box of Life. It's a social enterprise that helps people build healthy soil using their food scraps, and all of this can be done indoors using the humble earthworm. My knowledge is purely from practical experience, and I found it to be a very easy process. So I just want to share my experience and my design with everyone. I was trying to find ways to build something physically to improve the society that I live in. I should have started this 10 years ago, in hindsight. So the Box of Life essentially is fundamentally a box filled with a lot of microorganisms, earthworms, visible insects, all part of the composting food chain. And not only does it have a lot of life, but the end product, which is the worm casting, is nature's best fertilizer, and it leads to life in the form of plants that we eat, and that's why the Box of Life. In most cities, at least when I grew up in Mumbai, we didn't experience the outdoors unless we went on holiday. So in this case, I get to get a biology lesson in my own house. We have to educate our customers. We're basically educating them to create demand for our product. So once we go through the basics of composting, we will start to construct it. Essentially what you're going to build is this Box of Life. So this workshop gives them that initial level of exposure to working with tools, and more powerfully, it makes you build something with your own hands that you're now putting in your house. Just building it themselves adds so much more value as opposed to them just buying it. That's it. So let's get some coffee, because I think I need some as well. And then let's get to build. All right. So the fertilizer, the worm castings that you call it, it's also black gold.
No, I've always loved worms. I grew up on a farm, and so when my father would use from the manure pile to fertilize the fields, sometimes the worms were like 2 feet long that had been composting in the nice hot manure pile all winter. So they were enormous. So these worms are like little disappointing almosts, but
I don't know, it's weird, but I carry a small box of worms around when I talk to some people, and I show them, hey, this is straight from my worm bin, it's from my compost bin. This, what you're experiencing, what you're seeing, what you're smelling, is what a compost bin smells and looks and feels like. It reminds me of soil when it just rains. That's the smell you should get out of your compost bin, like nature.
I wanted to try that. It's been over a year, so.
About what? Sorry?
Yeah, I wanted to try that before, but you were always a bit like, oh no, I don't want to have worms in my house.
But 85% of the city buildings don't have access to that. So there's a primary access issue. So there are a lot of people in the urban environment that want to compost or want to have less smelly garbage, but they can't because the city doesn't provide that facility. We have a lot of climate inaction, I think, around us. And the reason is because we don't really understand how people function. A lot of people have values that, yes, I want to save the planet, I want to be kind to humans, I want to be kind to animals, but then their actions don't really reflect that. The biggest barrier, I think, is the lack of correct information or the lack of information. So composting is it's the easiest way to reduce your landfill. It doesn't require complicated machinery, it doesn't require tons of investment, it just requires you to balance your food scraps and let nature do the rest.
This is my 2 layers. I just need the covering for the bottom now and the lid, and I'm done. No, I will knit them little coats too in case it gets cold.
So I'm moving into being a worm farmer, which is pretty cool. Try to grow them and then address the lack of supply in the city. So I can provide the complete solution. Hopefully, the Box of Life can be a full-time gig in the near future. And keep at it. If you have problems, reach out to me. I'll be able to help you out. And with that, if you have problems, don't give up. Find solutions, because once you find that solution, you're most likely not going to have that problem again. And there are very few problems you can have. So keep at it and you will succeed. This is my passion project.
Oh, it wasn't as gross as I thought it would be.
No, and it made composting look so easy. Those little guys really wormed their way into my heart.
All right, Mark. We're going to be back in a second with someone else who's tackling different kinds of waste.
Hi, I'm Justin, and you're watching 25th Hour.
In our last segment, we looked at what worms could do after we're finished with our food. But what about the packaging that comes with the food in the first place?
Zero-waste grocery stores are starting to pop up in Ottawa. But how practical are they?
Yeah, exactly. The next person we're about to meet is Eugene Waters. Through trial and error, she's finding a way to live an almost waste-free life.
So this is probably our garbage from about 5 or 6 months. And I just don't take it to the curb until it's full. You can see we're getting there. I mean, there's a furnace filter, and then each of these bags is 1 week's worth of garbage. I actually first heard about the Plastic-Free July challenge, where you try and go a month without using single-use plastics. And I thought that was kind of interesting, and I was struggling with feeling like the problem was so big that it was hard to find something that I could do. And so I gave that a little bit of a try. And after 2 days, because I hadn't really prepared, I sort of failed miserably. And but the idea stuck. And I have like reusable nylon bags, and I always keep one attached to my purse. Over the last 3 to 4 months of 2018, I quit using single-use grocery bags at the grocery store, and I made sure that we always had reusable water bottles and you know, when I went out with my kids in the summer, so that was a big one. And then I decided not to use any disposable coffee cups, so I was either gonna, if I didn't have my reusable mug, I had to drink it in with a ceramic mug or go without coffee. So that was very highly motivated to stay committed. You know, once you make those decisions, it's kind of like changing any other lifestyle habit, like deciding to exercise or whatever. When you really commit, then it's the mental commitment that you need. Started really focusing next on choosing produce in the grocery store that was plastic free. Just like that. And then in January 2019, I became really determined to try and go full on zero waste. You can see here there's not a lot of plastic packaging. I mean, eggs. This is part of a cabbage that's just wrapped up with some beeswax wrap. This is some deli meat that's from the grocery store, so those were bought in our own containers. But definitely over the past year, I've expanded my cooking to you know, I never used to cook with lentils before, and now I do regularly. And cooking a lot more with beans and chickpeas and other sources of plant-based protein. Sometimes I've had potlucks and people are like, oh, I brought this in a reusable, they're like announcing to me that they brought their food or whatever in a reusable container, or, you know, so for the most part, it's been pretty easy. If someone brings something with a bit of waste, it's not a big deal because overall we're reducing by like 90%. We launched our own Ottawa Reduces initiative in September of 2019, and we launched it by we recruited maybe 8 to 10 businesses right at the beginning.
Oh. Bye. See you later. I carry like a range of beeswax wraps and bags, all Canadian made, beautiful. Those are really, really popular. I have a company from Peterborough that make the facial rounds, the reusable cotton wipes. They fly off the shelves. Those are great. And then I have like a company, I carry their product line from California that makes bags and laptop cases and wallets and a whole range of products from repurposed vinyl billboard. There's like lots of customers that come in that aren't here necessarily because it's an eco store. They're walking by, it catches their eye, they come in, and then they get introduced to some really cool products that sort of gives them cause to think about their usage at home, right? And that's sort of my journey started that way too, was visiting some really cool eco stores out west and in New York, and, you know, finding things that I loved, but then going, oh, I've never thought about cotton balls and how wasteful that is.
I think the zero waste movement and individuals and small businesses making efforts to reduce waste, I think we're starting to shift the needle in terms of like the overall culture of our society from being a throwaway, disposable, single-use society to trying to shift things to be a more circular society where we treasure the resources that we have and try and make sure that things are reused and you know, that we refill instead of just buying another container that gets tossed.
Did you see how small our garbage was?
Yeah, she's definitely not too worried about trash day.
True. Here's a quick look at who else we're going to meet in the show and what they're doing for the planet.
A company on the cusp of change.
And affordability issues. We wanted to solve the affordability issue as well.
Ottawa Advocates, combating corporate waste.
Love. They don't love the environment.
There's been a lot of talk about plastic straws. In June of last year, the federal government said they want to ban single-use plastics by the next year, including plastic straws. Let's turn to Jeff. He's with our reporter, Santana Bellantoni, to talk about what this might mean for people who want to do their part, but can't actually use a different type of straw.
Thank you, Mark. Santana, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You met someone named Hollis Pierce. Tell me about him.
Yeah, so Hollis Pierce has a disability, which in some cases means he has to use a plastic straw. In many restaurants in the city, they're actually switching to alternative straws such as paper. So when Hollis goes out, he brings plastic straws with him. He had told me that he sometimes is judged for using plastic straws because they don't understand why plastic straws.
Okay, well, let's meet Hollis.
I'm sorry, little one. I think you like it better afterwards, though.
Oh no.
How to do now? Can we actually...
Like I'm a bit of a not so kind-hearted person after seeing that PETA video, but it seems to me like a bit comical to have such a strong fight against plastic straws when all this other terrible stuff on the earth is going on. I have what's called congenital muscular dystrophy. I depend on restaurants or bars in particular having them available for me to use because they make it a lot easier for me to drink socially with my friends.
Hey man, how's it going?
Such as these days, a lot of alcohol.
How often do we go for beers? Like, I would say often, about once a week. I would be bummed out if Hollis couldn't come here and drink beer, you know, but it's nice that he can come here and I can just easily go meet him from my office or whatever.
Now that there's been more of a crackdown on plastic straws, I'm learning, because I'm being forced to learn, about where I can have different straws fit into my life. Admittedly, there are good paper straws. However, they are still being, they're a new technology, and so there's not many that stay strong when they're in liquid for a long time. The only plastic straws at restaurants these days that I've come across are little cocktail straws, and those are not suitable to pint glasses. If I'm trying to drink a Guinness with a cocktail straw, it's awfully hard, because then by the time I get to the bottom of the pint glass, it sinks and I can't see the straw anymore. I certainly have been told by individuals that they don't use plastic straws because they care about the environment. These derogatory comments often come from individuals who do not have experience with disabled individuals in their life. I really don't think that me using a plastic straw is going to save the world when all these big time oil companies are still spilling thousands of liters of oil into the oceans and killing millions of fish. You shouldn't talk to me like I don't care about the environment because I'm using a plastic straw. I'm using a plastic straw because it's easier for me in my situation. I feel like what I can control in my life, I'm doing. And I think that is all you can ask anybody to do.
I've actually never thought about it like that before.
Definitely. There's more to it than just banning plastic straws.
Hi, you're watching 25th Hour. Stay tuned for more.
Let's switch it up. Everyone we met so far has been looking at sustainability as a consumer. The next guy we're going to meet looks at sustainability from the business side. He's an entrepreneur. And you've met him, right, Mark?
That's right. Roger Costain and his team are building a solar energy company here in Ottawa. We met them in their workshop.
The lights that you guys brought are actually strong enough to put some power on the panel. So when I bring it up, you can actually see that there's power going through the panels being produced by the lights that you guys have.
Having integrated solar within the homes is the path forward. It's going to have to be. You can put wind power up, but those generally are large windmill stations, and there is issues out there with proximity to people. You can put large solar fields up. There is land issues, and that's what's led to our development of our panel. It's a two-in-one product. It's siding and a solar panel. So we're just on that cusp of securing our first customers, lining up jobs this summer to install our product. Yeah, and we're transitioning from a research phase to a production phase. Unlike a rooftop where you're kind of forced to do the whole roof or nothing, for siding, generally speaking, homes have a combination of different materials on the sides of home. Some brick, some other materials, some siding parts. And so for our typical home, as long as the wall is facing at a southerly location, you only need about 300 square feet to actually meet net zero, which mathematically, I think that works out to about 75 or 80 panels. And then you put brick, or you put some other material around it to create an aesthetically pleasing installation. And affordability issues. We wanted to solve the affordability issue as well. And again, our product being more sustainable, less expensive than a lot of other products in the market. The cost per watt is actually lower than many competitive installations of just regular solar panels.
So I'll be running through how we make our PCBs and then attach them to our backing material. So first, we have our PCB and then our diodes. And first off, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the solder paste, which is kind of like the electronic glue between the two components, and then just apply it to the pads. So after the solder paste is actually applied to the pads, I'm going to take the diodes and place them on the pads. So after the diodes are placed on the pads, we're going to use the heat guns to melt the solder and make the connection. So after the heating is done, you can see that the solder paste has melted and joined from the diode to the actual pad to make a nice silver connection. After that, I verify that the voltage and power can actually go through it. Then I'm going to solder some wires on it to connect from the solar cells and to the panel. So after soldering the wires, this is what the final product will look like. And then from there, this will be installed into the backing material. So from here, kind of just feed the wire through the pre-drilled holes. Like in a big factory, this would have been done like not one at a time, a big batch. We're not at that scale yet, so we're still doing it by hand, but at some point soon we'll be there. And this is the final backing product.
So once we have the panels all created and ready to go, the next step into the story is to get people to figure out about the product and understand how it's going to work on their building. So something we do is create different sort of renders of people's homes. You can kind of see how the product is going to fit into your home, things like that. We can do different building styles. It can work around brick or different facades, around windows, everything like that. And the whole point is to get the story out to people, and so people can understand how you can get off the rooftops and go into the walls and still get the energy that your home needs to get to net zero, get more energy efficient. Once we get the walls open, we could also work into better insulation, energy savings, and everything like that.
I am a bit of an environmentalist. Both my wife and I we like to be efficient in our lifestyle. We don't like excess. It seems to make more sense to live within your means as opposed to just wasting things. And it just seems like me having grandchildren, looking at my children entering the housing market and a few factors like that, you know, you kind of don't want to leave them a world that's too out of shape. You want to do what you can to make a positive impact, you know? And I just thought, well, here's a technology that I can develop and maybe make that positive impact.
Roderick's not the only person we're meeting today who's thinking about the next generation.
Speaking of people thinking about the next generation, coming up a little later in the show, we're going to meet a couple more people who are doing just that.
And you tear the country down. It's despicable.
It's never too late to join the fight.
By the time this is really horrible, we'll be gone. We won't be the ones left here to fight this.
Jeff, imagine walking into a store where everything was free. Or you could take that old t-shirt you were going to throw out and make it into something completely new.
That's pretty cool.
Well, that's what Jonathan Rousseau and Taylor Pugh are doing. They found a niche for people who don't want to buy into the fast fashion industry.
I got my job here at the university, and I'd actually heard this fantastic story about how there was a free store at the University of Carleton. And I didn't understand, like it blew my mind, like I couldn't understand, like a store where everything's free. My name is Jonathan Rosseo. I'm the Campus Sustainability Manager at the University of Ottawa, and so I help run the store here. It's still pretty good. People think that a secondhand store or something like that, it's for like poor people, like people who don't have enough money or something. And so you get this stigma that, oh, I don't go into a place like that, it's not for me, but it's not true. We get lots of items that are brand new. We get items that have tags on them. We get items that were bought aspirationally, and like where people were like, I was gonna be able to fit in these pants after I lost 10 or 15 pounds. That never happens. So it goes to the free store. Overconsumption. I think it's, people have said it's a biological imperative that people just hoard and collect things. I guess we're all kind of like giant human squirrels. The amount of donations we deal with every year, it's about, I think last year was a little over 30 tons. And that's just this small area of Ottawa. I work a lot with environmental issues. One of the big ones that we were trying to get people to stop doing was leaving the water running while they brush their teeth. It doesn't seem like such a problem because, the water just goes away. It's fast, it's easy. If you clog the sink, put a plug in and brush your teeth, and you watch that water building up, it'll overflow before you're done out of the sink, and it's a real issue. That's a problem. It's everywhere. We see that with garbage too. People don't care about garbage. You put it on a curb, it just disappears. Or you find a bin, it's gone. It's not a problem.
So it's easier for companies to get cheap prices out of them. Yeah, I've never wasted anything that I've used so far. Hi, my name is Taylor Pugh. I'm a fourth-year environmental studies student, but I am currently working on a business of tailoring collections, which is basically taking clothes that have been used through, whether I'm thrifting them or they're donated, and then I resell them as vintage pieces or upcycle them into something new. The fast fashion model of, the business model of it, it can't really exist, because if it exists and you're basically just producing as much as you can for as cheap as you can, then it's just gonna have to, something's gonna have to be the thing that you sacrifice, and that's usually environmental things and human rights impacts. Fast fashion is clothing that is designed to be bought and worn for cheap prices to be quickly discarded. It's unfortunate about the quantity of clothes that are on sale, because if these don't get sold, they'll be thrown out into the landfill or sent to third world countries to be burned. Whereas a cute t-shirt like this could simply be turned into a scrunchie.
At places, at retail stores, at the end of the year, you go in, you see these places great, full of stuff, cool. Towards the end of the season, they're having a big sale, they're trying to get rid of stuff, still lots and lots of things, that's great. Then afterwards, you don't, where does all that stuff go? It's not sold. And so when we'd gone to speak to someone at the Rito Center, he was working sanitation there, and he was donating some stuff to us because he spent his entire life, or I guess his entire working career there, just watching things get thrown in trash compactors. Shirts, pants, clothes, everything perfectly fine, never used, but we can't sell it. And we were like, what? And he's like, it's things we cannot sell. And I was like, well, why can't you sell them? And it's like, well, or why can't you donate them away at least? And one of the big reasons he ended up saying was like, well, if it's luxury clothes, you can't just give it to anyone. Luxury people are supposed to be wearing luxury clothes.
Love. They don't love the environment.
Man, I love that item.
You can save money and the planet at the same time. I know a lot of students who would really like that.
Hi, you're watching 25th Hour.
Young people get a lot of attention for their climate activism. Think Greta Thunberg.
Well, What if I told you that a 50-year-old and a 61-year-old have made it their mission to protest near and on Parliament Hill until the federal government takes concrete action?
But as we're about to see, they've made both some friends and some enemies.
Should all be in jail! Rule of law! And you tear the country down! It's despicable!
My name is Incognito, and this is Mr. Myrtle, my service and support dog. I am camped here under the Prime Minister's office, waiting to meet with him and give him my petition regarding response to the climate crisis. And I'm not leaving here until our government is doing what we need them to do.
My name is John O'Brien. I go by the name Green Gramps on the Hill while I'm in Ottawa. Yesterday was my 38th day. I sat in front of the entrance to the new House of Commons, which is in the old West Block.
I started Extinction Rebellion in Alberta.
She'd walked from Calgary across the country, a woman of 50 years old, by herself, sleeping in a tent. And I was like, I thought I was doing a pretty cool thing, you know? Okay, here we are. First full day on the Hill. Came up here yesterday afternoon, that would be Saturday. Prime Minister Trudeau, what are you going to tell your beautiful children in 2030 when we haven't met our climate change targets? Indeed, all the children of this country. Now, she's passed 3 months living on this camp in a tent. I slept in the tent for the first time a couple of nights ago, and it was minus 25. And I had all this clothing on, and I was cold.
There's the meeting tent in here, and when people are coming by, like if it's an interview or just people coming by to support or to talk or that kind of, we can all sit in there together. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Control published a report in October 18 that basically said we have 12 years left to make a difference.
Climate change has been here for years. People have known about it, and everybody just keeps pushing it off. Oh, we don't have to worry about it, whatever. So this past year, when Greta started to come into the limelight and get more and more people aware of it, and particularly a lot of young people involved. Again, my wife and I found a lot of inspiration from her, but we were also saddened by the fact that it was a young person.
We nearly had to shut it down a few days ago because there were not enough people trying to do way too much all the time, and now other people have heard about that and are starting to come and help even more and support it more.
It's our generation and previous generations that have created this mess, and it should be us that are stepping up to the plate and taking a hold of the issue and starting to fix it. That's getting better, particularly here in Ottawa. There's a lot of seniors involved, a lot of great people. But just in general across the country, there's not enough people who are really taking it seriously, and it shouldn't be the young people that are having to deal with this.
The story you tell can either get people killed or they can save lives. You have power.
It's wonderful how many young people are getting involved because they understand this is our future you people are talking about. But we need more people, more parents, more grandparents to step up to the plate and do the right thing as well.
I wonder what the inside of her tent looked like.
Well, I actually got to see inside it. It's fairly big, but it was hard to stand up straight. It was mainly filled with supplies to keep Anne warm, especially when it gets cold.
That's it for today. On this episode of the 25th Hour, we've seen how some people here in Ottawa have been working to combat climate change. I'm Mark McGovern.
And I'm Jeff Tram. Join us next time for more stories from the nation's capital.
And before we go, let's take a look at what the 25th Hour crew is doing for climate action. Thanks for watching.
So one of the things I do to try to help the environment is I try to unplug any electronics I'm not using from the walls to save electricity.
I drive a hybrid car for work, a Prius to be exact.
To help the environment, I stopped eating beef and pork.
For the environment, I use oat milk instead of cow's milk because it uses less water to produce.
I try to save the environment by being a conscious consumer and not buying things that I don't need.
I use reusable grocery bags to reduce my waste.